If you guys do not like this channel, I have an announcement to make, and that announcement is the fact that I am a gamer. I mean clearly I am a gamer. You can hear my voice and you can see. Wait, no. You can't. But there is a lot of tabs up there. You can see, I mean, I don't know if you can, but I have tabs down here and Twitch. I have Discord. I had Minecraft up, but let's get into the chapter that got cut off because it's up here and I need to add a page break. Softglow was surprised to wake up the next day. She thought that she had failed for a second, but when she opened her eyes again, she was back on the island of Laxity. She found the component in her hands, and she quickly took out her compass and popped the hatch and slid in the component. It was the reality connector. It must have still had an influence on her, even though it wasn't in the compass, because she knew that if she fell, she would have died. And the light scratches she got from the berry bushes translated to her real self. Only one component was left. She needed to get off the island. Even though she wanted to sit down and think of her experience in the void, she knew that she didn't have time. Also, guys, I have water. Um, People rushed past her, evacuating the island, and she knew she needed to as well. She needed to leave fast. It was getting dark in the void, and she knew that the island was going to get destroyed soon. Softglow didn't see any of the hot air balloons when she exited the tunnel, and she saw that they were all down by the glacier. There was nothing she could do, but Graymond came up. "Hey!" he screamed. "Take this! This is the only one left!" Graymond said, handing her a backpack-like object. "I'll be fine, but you have things to do. This is a parachute. Jump off the island." Softglow, Softglow took the parachute and put it over her arms, making sure to have the drawstring ready. She waved to Graymond, who was helping people get to the edge of the island. He waved back, smiling and giving a peace sign next to his face. She was free falling. Then she pulled the drawstring and let out her parachute. She heard a loud sound come from the island, and with that she knew it had been destroyed. Stone chunks of the island flew past her, and when she looked up, there were no more screams of fear. They had all subsided, or when they had all died. Softglow hoped that Graymond and the group had made it, but somewhere she knew they didn't. She had gracefully landed on the ground when the voice told her what to do next. The next component Oh my gosh. The next component is inside the factory. The king will greet you. He is the one that killed the people. I believed in him. I thought that he would not turn out this way, but everything changed when Big Blue Hill had been discovered. Oh, nice water. "Okay," said Softglow, changing her direction to head to the factory. She landed in the glacier, the wind blowing her hair. She asked one of the Yetis where she could get into the factory. The Yeti looked stunned when it pointed downhill. There were no Laxians in the glacier. Softglow thought that they had either all gone through the hole or had died. Softglow looked up one last time for a last glance at the island of Laxity, but was greeted by the empty sky. She continued down into the hole. It was dark and icy. She thought that she was going to slip, but her boots were good enough to not let her. She turned a bend and to get greeted by an empty room, and there was a large gap from the floor to the ceiling, but there were stairs going down the side. There were also stairs on the other side that led up, and Softglow saw the holes in the ceiling and knew that there must be another place above this room she was in. She climbed the stairs until she felt like she had gone up 4 kilometers. There had been no rail, and if she stopped to rest, she probably would have rolled off into the empty stone room, falling to the 2 kilometers that she had come up. She continued until she got to the top, and she popped out into a room with more of the bodies. The holes were visible, though. The holes led down to the second room, and she stepped out of the room and started to look for an exit. She needed to get to where the king was. She didn't know where he may be, but she figured that she needed to go up, and she knew the component was near. She looked at the left wall and found a gap, and she approached the gap and saw its pitch blackness bleeding out into the stone room. She didn't know how it was lit up, but it was. She entered the gap and found herself feeling for ways around. It was a small gap. She had gone about 13 meters before she reached the other end. There was some light, but it seemed to be mostly covered by some sort of large tree. It was growing underneath the ceiling of the cave, letting leaves fly around the room, spiraling to the ground. Sofkla continued through the room, looking to her left to see a ladder. The ladder went up, and she knew she had to climb it. She climbed up the ladder. It was very tall, and she knew there had to be spiders somewhere in this place, but she surprisingly didn't see that many. She got to the top and found only one or two. They stayed in their tiny webs, and she let them to do what they needed to do. She continued until she reached the top, and the ladder had an abrupt end, but she looked to her side and saw a key crudely put in place by a cobweb. She grabbed the key and unlocked the hatch, and then she dropped it. It didn't mean She didn't mean to, but she did anyway. The key tumbled before a sound came from below. It sounded like a quiet nom, like something ate it. It sounded small. A ladder had popped out of the hatch and swung down, hanging over the void. It looked newly constructed and never used, though, and she didn't trust it for that reason. But Sofkla didn't want to meet this thing, and she climbed into the hatch. She closed the thing behind her, and she found herself in a metallic room. The shiny walls were dripping a little bit. She felt the compass's final components were in 30 meters. She was going to get Harlan back. She looked around, spotting a handle on some sort of a door. She gripped the rubber and opened the door, then walked through and closed it behind her. She was definitely in a factory. The mechanical whir of machines buzzed in front of her, and she saw that it was under construction. But it was still already a factory. Um, she continued around the edge of the place on her right, and she noticed a door and went through it. She popped out in some sort of laboratory. There were Laxians and underbloods inside of the tubes. They looked like your classic futuristic sci-fi experimental test tubes. Sofkla was amazed. She wanted to break them out, but that would probably kill them and get her caught. She wouldn't be able to see Harlan. So she continued down the hall of tubes, and at the end she saw a glass room. She saw people inside, and the king was keeping humans. They were confined in small glass boxes, and they looked middle-aged, and when they saw Sofkla, they approached the glass and banged on it. Sofkla stepped back, terrified. "Hello, Sophie." A menacing voice came from her ear. She turned to no avail. "Why are you doing this?" she screamed out to the factory. "Why do you have to torture these people?" There was a pause, but the king started talking. "You see, Sophie, when Big Blue Hill was discovered, their tree had flowed away. So they declared war on us leaders. They assembled into large legions of soldiers, and they came after us. When we figured out how fun it was to kill them, I turned to you. Because you humans are just as pathetic as them," the king said, laughing maniacally. Whatever he has or was becoming needed to stop. "I want to have as much fun as possible. I let most people come in and leave, but others I take. Lucky for you, you came in before these plans were set into motion. I have assembled this factory to make my minions, and to create them, we needed two things. A human," the king said, magically forcing Sofkla's head to face the terrariums, "and a horse." She was pushed across the floor by the same force and was greeted by terrariums with horses in it. Sofkla put her hand up to her mouth and gasped. "In order to make my minions, all you have to do is chop, 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 so, and then they are ready to send after more. Humans, you see. Everything used to be all fine and dandy with us leaders, but after I discovered how much fun I could have with the humans, I broke off on my own little pathway, vowing to become the most powerful leader of Blood Lake. I've set up these farms here. so I can have an infinite supply. But there's no